Hi, everyone. After months of preparation and now weeks of serious discussions and elaboration, we have made the decision on the upcoming symposium that was supposed to take place in Singapore. And so we would like to announce the decision now, but also spend some time talking about the logic behind the decision, the thinking that went into making this decision. And so here with me is Professor Leilani Baumenis of Johnson & Wales University here in the United States. Professor Baumenis is the director of the XCulture Global Business Week Symposium. So she is the brains, the hands, the heart, the soul behind all these meetings that we've had over the years. Not with us here, but have already spent probably a combined of at least 1,000 hours are Professor Gordon Perchold, so the professor from Singapore Management University, who is our local host. His team also included several students and several other professors, Kevin, Derek, too many people to list here. And also here from the American side, Karen Linden, Tim Muth, Valerie Bell, as well as Maddalena Dullio in Italy. And I'm not listing here all of the other assistants, but it's probably at least a dozen people, Alex Assad, at least a dozen people who have been working really hard on this event, starting literally last summer, all the way back in Canada, where we started planning the event, and all the way up until today. So thank you so much, all of them who have invested so much time in it, especially the people at the Singapore Management University, Gordon, first and foremost. So let us talk a little bit about what we decided to do and why. And so I'm going to turn the microphone here to Professor Baumenis to tell us a little bit more about what we're going to do and how we're going to proceed.
Yeah. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us in this. I make sure that we made this announcement to you in person. I didn't want to give you a very flat email just stating that we've canceled it. I wanted to make sure that you understood why we had to do it in this manner, and become really transparent as to how we're going to move forward in the future, because that could include you. And again, this is an opportunity for you, because these kinds of things around the world. Okay, so officially announced that the 2020 XCulture Global Business Week Singapore is now canceled. We are hoping that we could postpone it to the following year perhaps, but we're not quite in the clear yet. We're still in with several entities, including Singapore Management University, to see if it's something that they'd like to do in 2021. But be sure that we will be hosting, given that everything is accessible for us, that we will be hosting a 2021 XCulture Global Business Week somewhere in the world. Okay.
So let's maybe discuss and explain the reasons for canceling the event. And there are numerous reasons. One of in fact, the reason we've been waiting until now and have not announced anything, even though it's been several weeks since the application deadline, is because literally we just didn't know. We needed more time. We needed more research. We wanted to see how the situation develops. We didn't want to make this difficult decision until we are absolutely sure there is no way we can organize it.
Right.
So in terms of the reasons, I mean, would you like to summarize the key reasons?
Well, so Dr. Perchold sent us an email a few days ago letting us know that at this time, Singapore is actually safe to travel in. They have contained
the keyword, the coronavirus, right? So yes. Everybody knows, but yes, that's the main reason, right? So
yes, but it's you know, Singapore is very safe.
Right.
However, Singapore Management University in the country of Singapore is now adamant about letting in other people coming from other countries that may have potentially contracted the coronavirus. And, you know, I mean, we have 200 people.
Yeah.
So it's a given that we're going to have a lot of hardship. I mean, last year we had 42 countries around the world. Africa, South America, North America, and the coronavirus is everywhere. So it's a legitimate and logical decision to cancel this symposium for the sake. So that's one.
Exactly, Lonnie, as we are talking here, I guess, we don't have to stick with the script. So literally, I was looking at my email. You can see my screen, right?
Yes.
So literally 5 minutes ago, I got this email from University of Calgary, health and travel cancellation. So my university makes, if I read it correctly, as of March the 2nd, basically all travel prohibited for the university-related business. So, so basically the students from UNCG would not be allowed to travel to other countries at the university business or university expense, including me. So the challenge here is that it's not even that Singapore may not be comfortable allowing people in, and we don't know what's going to change in the next few months, but it also looks like many universities are also advising against travel that students, especially to countries that potentially can be a risk. And
exactly.
Asia,
I received the same thing this morning. My university is not permitting us to travel to China, to South Korea, and for some reason also in there is Singapore is a part of it, because I guess that there was coronavirus there. And also we're not permitted to travel to Italy. All study abroad engagements that were going to those countries were immediately canceled ago. So, universities are just, go ahead.
Yeah, not to mention that the connecting flights can be going through the countries where that can be on the sort of no-flight list. I also read the other day on the news that the British Airways canceled flights to Italy until mid-April. And so who knows what other flights will be canceled. And as a result, there is always a risk that even if I want to go to Singapore and I don't worry about the coronavirus, and I don't care if somebody says there is a travel advisory, there is a good chance that one, I may simply not make my connecting flights if they happen to be through some of the countries that at that time may be affected. Second, Singapore may not allow me in, especially if at that time either the United States is on the list or one of the connecting countries is on the list. So obviously, not to mention that, how should I put it? When we plan the capacity, we expect a certain number of people to show up. And, if somebody doesn't show up, that's usually a problem, but we can say, for example, if you don't cancel by certain date, there are no refunds. But in a situation like this, where it's literally like force majeure, so it's not something that people can control, we cannot be, we cannot say that we will not issue a refund, because I mean, it's a legitimate health risk issue. And so that also messes up the whole logistics of the event. I mean, the hotel and the meeting venue and food and transportation. But what if someone then cannot show up? So what do we do in that case? I mean,
well, and keep in mind that, one of the core values of XCulture and We Evolve Global, which is the arm of XCulture that supports the Global Business Week. One of our core values is to keep our costs down and to make it very affordable even for our poorest students. And we anticipate a price that was a little bit higher than typical, but that we really needed to hit capacity at a minimum of 160 students. Like, that was such a hard decision to make, because as you know, so we wanted to go to Singapore. We had a great university that was going to host us. Everybody was excited about it, but we needed to find a fair price. Put a break even, which was 12, 60 capacity. Otherwise, given this situation, and then all of the travel logistics and the hoops that we would have to go through, significantly higher with coronavirus, and I just, again, being mindful of all the students who worked very hard to get to this point, to get accepted, and who have been very excited about attending. we really did try very hard to make a decision and wanted to make sure that we made the right decisions. And I really feel that this was the right decision for us.
Yeah, another, again, just as the lesson for me at least, you know, some people said, well, if you're not sure that everybody who signs up is able to attend, why don't you this year accept more people? So for example, we planned 160 students this year. And some people said, why don't you accept 200 or 250 students in case somebody doesn't show up? But again, many people don't realize that it's not so simple, because when we book housing for a specific number of people, transportation,
Right.
food, if more people show up, that's also a problem. We may literally not have room for them. But then again, if not enough people show up, we still have to pay for them. For example, in Calgary, we actually did have a few people who didn't get the visa. And so they didn't know until the last moment, because they had the interview scheduled. And so they wouldn't know until literally like a few days before the event. And so a few days before the event, they have the interview and they get the visa rejection or no answer at all. So we had a few students who just waited and never got the answer before the event. And so even though they didn't show up, the housing was booked. We already paid for it. So we had to lose that money. And then I'll be honest with you, even though on the website we said that no refunds after, I believe, cancellations after June 1st or something like that, in the end, we made the decision to issue at least partial refunds to those who even canceled like literally on the day of the event. Because again, these are students and we didn't feel comfortable just basically taking money from them, even though we did end up paying for their hotel, paying for their transportation.
Yeah.
So I think we did withhold, you know, like partial, you know, for some of the processing, but basically we were losing money on those who didn't show up. And so this time it's just too risky. I mean, if we had a few grants with a few $1 million and we could just afford to lose, you know, a couple $100,000, we might still go, and, you know, if only 20 people show up, big deal, we would go ahead. But unfortunately, the way we price these events and the way we do it is we calculate the total cost, we divide it by the number of attendees, and we literally had, like this time, because the cost is a little bit higher than usual, we literally had zero margin. So if somebody doesn't show up, that means that we would have to cover that from our budget. And that's just a little too risky, and it just a lesson for us all that global events sometimes can mess up your best plans. So,
Right.
and
Which, you know, I wanted to ask you, Vas, to, you know, let us use this as a teaching opportunity, right? So can you tell them a little bit about what happened in Hong Kong, for example?
Before we get to that, one point that I would like to make here is that even as is, canceling now, and one of the reasons, by the way, we didn't open the registration portal, because there was a risk that something may not work, and I was concerned that if we opened the registrations, and we had at this time something like 250 people who were accepted or applied and seemed like good candidates. So if they started paying the registration fee, each time we receive the money, the bank usually takes about 3% for international transfers. And so if we had to cancel it, we would be losing money just because the money moves back and forth. Each time it's like 3% each way. So we'll lose about $40, $50 each time. But even as is, even though we didn't accept any money so far, it still looks like we're going to be losing some money because we already made some prepayments for, was it for the opening?
So the gala was prepaid. So we'll be losing, I don't know if you want to tell, our initial down payment for that was $3,500. So that's a loss. And then also, you know, we had to pay for staff. I mean, most of us are volunteers, but, you know, some people have to be paid. So, so you know, I mean, the staff still has to be paid. You and I don't get paid, but everybody else.
That's the problem, yes. So we had a little money left after Calgary, and so we'll use that reserve, and good that we have a little reserve so we can cover this loss, the prepayment, because otherwise literally it would be me and Professor Balmanis who would have to take our own money and pay for that registration. But another very important thing, and again, here for me as a kind of company coordinator, one thing that I really feel bad about is that, so we started thinking about this event sometime probably around May, June. Then we had the whole team in Calgary. So Gordon Perchhold was there, Valerie, Tim, Leilani, so there were basically 6 or 7 people who came and did a lot of planning there. And basically right after Calgary, right after July, we started, you know, went into full preparation mode. And then in the fall, we started updating the website and making arrangements. And so what I really feel bad about is that we have several people who now have each invested hundreds of hours of time. So Professor Perchhold in Singapore, so he already made the arrangements as far as housing, the hotel, the opening ceremony venue, the gala dinner. He started talking to many companies that would have been hosting us and in fact made arrangements. In fact, I spoke with those companies, so they're waiting for us to visit them. Same thing with Professor Baumanis. It's like, I don't know, must have been at least 50, 60 phone calls just between the two of us. And I imagine that you must have had like 3 times as many.
Everybody else.
Everybody else and with Singapore and other professors. So that's hundreds and hundreds of hours of time invested. And now basically, well, we'll see how things go. We'll talk about the future plans. Maybe some of that can still be used. Maybe it will just, postpone, but not a full cancellation. But again, that's a lesson for me. That's a lesson for everybody. That sometimes, despite the best intentions, the best planning, a huge interest from the students, and we get many, many emails every day. Students are anxious saying, I applied, was I accepted, can I come? And with, willing participants, willing organizers, venue companies, everything's in place. And boom, this black swan came here in the form of the coronavirus and messed up the whole, the entire event.
But it's life, right? So that's what happens. And I think that we have to be, first of all, we have to be very grateful that we weren't in Singapore and the coronavirus happened, because that would have been so much worse.
In fact, it would have been much worse, or if we were moving much faster. In fact, this semester, the local host professor, Gordon Perchhold, a very kind of
very fast, very assertive.
Yeah, we thought we were organized and fast, and but no, he is really, really organized. And so he was pushing us to start sending out invitations in December, maybe even in November. And the only reason we waited for that, because we needed to wrap that semester and we needed to see the performance records for the current semester students.
Right,
so we waited a little. But had we moved faster, I mean, that would have been under normal circumstances, that would have been a wonderful thing. That's what you want to do. But had we then, proceeded with the registrations and everything, that would have been
and then there were contracts that were like in queue to be signed, you know? Like I think we signed one contract. That's the one that we're committed to paying or losing the deposit. But in anticipation of the conference, there was a 50% deposit for hotels that would have been something like $43,000 that we did not sign. And I'm so glad we didn't sign that, because I can't imagine that they'd want the whole thing, but we would have been on the hook for a good bit of that.
Yeah, and money, that's, money come, money go. The problem is that what if this happened in June, right before the event?
Right.
In that case, do you still allow students to come and take the risk? Like, I would not be able to sort of, sleep well if I know that because of my sort of, insistence on moving ahead with the event, somebody got sick or, God forbid, had serious complications. So again, if it were a commercial event where we stand to sort of make some money and everybody who attends is kind of an independent adult standing to basically, come for their own sort of, initiative, profit, whatever the reason. So that's one thing. But in this case, we're talking about basically our children. So students, that we are responsible for. It's not like we are selling a product and we don't care about, the customer as long as they pay for the product. No. That's a whole different thing. So we are talking about, students, children that we are literally responsible for. I usually bring my own children. So that makes it a little bit, like all of a sudden that decision-making becomes a whole different story. So,
No, we've always treated all of our students as if they were our own children. And I think of them that way, that if this was my child and a parent was, putting the safety and well-being of their children in my hands, how should I behave? And this is the right decision. So
if our kids went somewhere overseas, I would expect the professors to basically treat them during the trip as their own kids. And if somebody gets sick or something, that would be.
Exactly. So this decision was made for your welfare and your safety. So
what happens now, Leilani? So let's discuss what the plans are, and are we ready to announce the sort of the plan B, or are we still thinking?
Well, I still want to address the teaching opportunity for students, because this is international business, and this is international business active learning for real. Okay. As you know, we scheduled, or many of you know this, but we scheduled to go to Singapore because the Academy of International Business World was scheduled to be in Hong Kong in July.
Yeah.
And I was very aggressive in finding somebody who will host us in Asia because of that. And that's when Dr. Perchald presented himself.
And just to explain, so the reason we wanted to do it together with the Academy of International Business, so all our fall events, and we've done a couple of summer events together with the Academy of International Business, because many of our professors, and usually it's like 20, 30, 40, 50, probably summer, maybe even 50, 60 professors, XCulture professors, they go to the Academy of International Business conference. And because travel is expensive, it takes time, it takes money, it's kind of convenient to do it back to back, so that when we go to the conference organized by the Academy of International Business, we just stay longer and stay for the event, for the XCulture Symposium event.
Yeah.
Time saves money.
And we get a lot more mileage out of our travel stipends. I mean, it costs from Miami to Singapore is about $1,500. And, you know, it's a lot of travel time as well. It takes, I think, 23 hours in total to get over to Asia. So, I mean, it was like killing two birds with one stone. So, and that's why we were going to Singapore. However, because of the geopolitical situation between China and Hong Kong, AIB World diverted to come to Miami, where is my hometown. So now I'm here in Miami, where AIB World is supposed to take place in July. And immediately after AIB World, I have to jump on a plane, or supposed to jump on a plane and go straight to Singapore. And that's all of our faculty. We were all expected to be in Miami for the Academy of International Business World Conference, and then very quickly jump on the plane and go to Singapore
And
to
then,
go to XCulture.
and then from there, we would have 2 days to get to Vancouver for the Academy of Management conference. Many of us go there. So, but yes, but the reason, so that's sort of several things came together in a weird way, because the AIB changed Hong Kong to Miami way before coronavirus. They made that announcement in late November. And so they made that announcement because of the protests in Hong Kong. And so they actually delayed a little bit the registration this year, because they, again, were watching and trying to decide what to do. It turned out to be a wise decision, because they didn't know that the coronavirus would happen in China. So, but that messed up our plans a little bit, but you know, you never know. So it was like 2 black swans this year. So
well, we stuck with Singapore because we were committed to our partner, we were committed to our students. So we really did stick as long as we can to our decision. And it's just, you know, it just wasn't meant to be. So
actually, Leilani, talking about this lesson, so this semester was tricky, because the fall semester, we actually had several countries that were affected by geopolitical events. So we had Hong Kong, and so we had a lot of students who were from Hong Kong and couldn't fully participate. Then we had protests in Venezuela, and we had a large class from Venezuela, and they literally had blackouts, like no electricity, everything was shut down. And so several of them were panicking and saying, you know, what do I do? Like, I literally don't have, not even the internet, I don't have the lights, like last night. Then we had Iran, then there were a couple more countries. There was something going on in Egypt, and there was something in Europe. There was also something going on in France. I believe they had those protests. And it all coincided in the fall. And all of a sudden, we have like 4 countries where at the same time we have all those protests. I guess it's a learning opportunity for the students.
It really is.
Like
it really
sometimes
is.
students complain, oh, he didn't go online because, you know, he doesn't care. Well, sometimes people do care, but, you know, things happen. It's international business.
This really is a very good learning opportunity for us. You know, it's through hardship, I think, that most of us learn the best. And just be thankful that, you know, we're all safe. We can all sleep in our beds. And, you know, Madalena Dulio sent us a picture of the grocery store where there are no pasta on the shelves in their grocery store in Italy. So, I was just in a meeting with her this afternoon, and she still is in confinement in her own house, that she can't leave her home, at least till the end of next week, I believe. So, and this is going on 3 or 4 weeks now, I believe, that she's been in confinement, only able to work in her house. And she was telling me a story, and I hope this isn't top secret, but she was telling me a story that in her small, teeny tiny village in Lombardy in Italy, the local pub or the local bar where everybody goes to, you know, in those small Italian villages, it's like the central meeting place that everybody goes to. Well, they had to shut it down because the wife of the bar owner has coronavirus, and they're young, they're in their early 50s. So you know, again, you never know, and this is affecting everybody. You know, I would have never thought that it would have been in Lombardy, in Milan, in Italy, when this all started out in China.
So what you would do now? So what are the options? And I'll be right, you know, forthright. We're still not 100% sure what we're going to do for the 2020 this summer and 2021. So we still have a few options, and we are still exploring if we want to do anything this summer, maybe somewhere else. The problem is that organizing an event like this, it usually takes about a year. So we start planning at the previous conference and then spend one whole year basically preparing. And the amount of time needed increases as we get closer to the event. So first half, you know, quarter, half a year, it's several meetings a week. Then it gets every day. And then the last few months, it's basically nonstop, this and nothing else for at least half a dozen people.
Well, the lead time too, to make reservations for venues, for hotels, for, you know, lecture halls, it's 6 months.
Yeah, so it looks like we will not be able to do a full-scale event for the students. It's just logistically impossible, even if we tried. So we may do something for the professors who are attending the Academy of International Business Conference in Miami. Maybe, so we probably will not be inviting students this time just because it's so uncertain, but there will be some professors who will come to the conference no matter what. Although again, I would not be so sure because, you know, if by that time the coronavirus, you know, situation does not improve, who knows what will be banned at that time.
Exactly.
So I did pay my registration already, so it's about $600, and I did book my hotel already, so, but we'll see. So, but in any case, we may do something for the professors. One thing that we do every year, twice a year at these major conferences is the XCulture Professor Dinner. And so that's usually like, you know, a few hours at a restaurant where we have a chance to meet each other, to talk about our, you know, plans and last year, and, you know, just to get to know each other. Maybe we'll do something bigger in Miami this time for the professors.
Yeah,
So we have
I'm actually working on that. And as we were talking on the phone, I got a message from the person that I've been collaborating with. So we don't want to make any announcement yet, but I think that it should work out very well.
We may have a nice surprise, at least for the professors attending the event.
Yeah. Which, you know, I don't see why we can't delay a celebration in 2021 for the 10-year anniversary, just because we're a year late. I mean, I think that if, you know, in a perfect world, if 2021 can be hosted by Singapore Management University, I would still follow through with all the plans that we had made. And I don't really see a reason why we shouldn't continue our initial plan of celebrating the 10-year anniversary at that time.
Now, a couple more things related to this summer, though. So we will probably do something for the professors in Miami. A few students started asking, can I come with you to Miami? And here is something that you need to know. One, events of this kind are usually very expensive. So students, when they say, oh, why does XCulture cost so much? And some people do calculations. You can eat at a restaurant for like $10 a meal, and you can stay at Airbnb $20 a night or $50 a night. No. Events like this are much, much more expensive. So for example, the Academy of International Business Conference, which is only 3 days. It's only 3 days. Just the registration is basically $600. And that's not including anything. So you then have to separately pay for the hotel. And so it could be easily $200-300 a night, depending on where you are. And in Miami, it's basically that. And then food, they provide some snacks during the day, but dinners are basically on you except for the gala dinner. But then even then, if you want to bring a guest, it's like $50 extra or something like that. So for me, usually an event like that, it's easily, $2,000 just the event plus the flight or travel. And so I don't think many students will be able to afford it. So when we do it for the students, we try to cut costs as much as possible. But, you know, when it's done at the kind of professional level for professors, it will be more expensive. Second, if you want to come to this event, if you want to do a presentation, usually you have to apply, the deadline is sometime in November. So we kind of missed that deadline even if students wanted to come. I suppose they can still show up as attendees without presentation. But again, it would be hard to, you know, And then again, it's a scientific conference. So, I mean, if you want to meet professors presenting their work, I suppose, why not? You can still register directly through AAB and join us. But it's not an event where it's focused on students. Like when we do the symposium,
it's not fun. Don't go.
Well, it's fun if you are a scientist and you
Right.
do your
But
own
it's
research
not-
and want to see what others do.
Right. It's not XCulture Global Business.
Yeah. For XCulture, we have a lot of fun in the sense that first
Yeah.
we have a lot of career development. We have the how to write a resume workshop, how to do a job interview workshop, career advice, elevator pitch competition.
And then we go around and
meetings with the
visit
companies, you know, usually like in Calgary, we had like 4 companies that we visited.
Yeah.
We have meetings with the local community leaders, politicians,
Right.
entrepreneurs. So obviously it's all about, you know, you learning how to be an effective business person.
Right. Very student driven, student driven. Whereas the Academy of International Business world is going to be very scientific paper driven, very research driven. And you have to do a lot of homework before you go.
Yeah, so that's something for people who are professional researchers and who want to meet other professional researchers and talk about all those numbers and formulas and, you know.
Yes, yes.
In addition, we're also still organizing, at least at this time, it's still a go. We already booked the house and started preparing. So a hackathon in Vancouver for at the Academy of Management. And so what we did there, usually we limit it to about 10 professors. So there will be many more professors attending the conference, but about 10, 12 will be taking part in the hackathon. And so what we did, we literally booked an entire house, 8-bedroom house in the downtown of Vancouver. And so we will essentially lock ourselves up in that house and we will do research for 8 days. So it's 8 nights, 9 days basically. And so, but that's again, that's only for professors who do research, who want to sort of, you know, do this hackathon marathon, research marathon, where we wake up, we start crunching our numbers all day, you know, writing papers. And then when we're completely tired at night, maybe go out for dinner and then do a few more hours of work and then drop sleep and then repeat next day. So for professors, that's a very, you know, unique event. We always have more people than we can accommodate. But again, for students, that's not exactly something you want to participate in unless you are like a PhD student, professional researcher. So I don't think we will be doing anything, you know, student-centric this year in the summer, just because we don't have the time to organize anything. And we don't know which location will be then under travel restriction by the time the event starts. So we can choose any safest country, Canada, the United States. Who knows what's going to happen by then? So
but AIB Southeast will be in Panama City this year, hosted by Florida State University. And I don't know if Alex has worked on that yet, but I'm assuming that that's going to also
so we will
invite
definitely do that one. So we always have 2 symposia a year, one in the summer, bigger one, and then in the fall, smaller one. So this year, last year it was in San Antonio, Texas. We had 50 students. Before that, it was in Nashville. So this year it's in Panama City in Florida. And so we definitely will have that one. And maybe we'll have to talk to the Academy of International Business and see if we can bring more students this time. So again, one of the reasons we've been doing it with them for like 7 years, the problem is, again, it's a scientific conference for professors. And so one of the reasons we started organizing the summer event is because if we bring all of the students that we think deserve to be there, we can literally overwhelm the conference. And so in addition to the 300 professors they have there, we can have like as many students, and it will kind of turn the dynamics of the event. So we always limit to 50 students, but maybe this year they will allow us to bring a little bit more. We'll have to see, but it's a little too early to make those announcements. Again, we need to monitor the situation.
And I think what we should do, and I'll work with Alex with this, is that the 250 students that we have accepted, I think that they should get priority invitation for
maybe, And by the way, again, let's tell why we accepted, or at least conditionally accepted 250. Again, we always overbook a little bit because, you know, some people will not get the visa. Some people will get sick last minute. Some people will have, I don't know, a job offer for the summer or internship offer. So we always overbook a little bit because we know that there will be some plan changes for some people. So, but yes, we had a nice group of people, and it seems like we'll have to maybe make some special arrangements for them as long as they want to attend the one in Florida in the fall.
Right. So I think that that should be our first maybe invitation population pool.
And
do the rounds in that way, and I know that AIB Southeast always has a 50 student ceiling,
Yeah, maybe
but
we'll make some arrangements for a
yeah,
larger group
we'll
this
take
time.
a look
And so for 2021, again, we are not quite ready to make any firm announcements, but so I guess the working plan is we'll see, maybe we'll still stay in Singapore. We've done a lot of preparation. We have a wonderful team there. They're very supportive. We may even be able to save a few dollars because, as we said, we already pre-booked some stuff and we are losing that money. But one thing they said, if you want to postpone it, I think they said like up to a month, we'll keep your prepayment. I'm not sure if they will be willing to keep that money for a year, but if somehow we could do it next year, maybe we can save a little bit that way. But again, we'll have to see how things will be developing. And so maybe we'll still do Singapore. And if that doesn't work for whatever reason, so again, it's still too early to be firm, we will definitely be looking in some other, locations and definitely planning to do, like we will do something next year for sure.
Right.
Maybe even bigger than usual, sort of, to kind of accommodate this backlog. So we'll either have to be either more selective, because I assume skipping 1 year means that we'll have twice as many applications next year.
Yeah.
Or we'll have to maybe expand the venue and make it a larger group. Again, one thing you should realize or understand with that case, so a larger group, that's more work for us. I mean, like for us, I mean,
A lot more work.
we essentially volunteer, so we do compensate the travel expenses and little honoraria for some of the people.
Right.
A lot of time, but what you should understand, people like Gordon Perchhold, like Leilani Baumanis, I mean, these people, they cost literally 3-figure per hour if you want to hire them on the open market. I mean, we are talking about people that are very, very expensive if you want to hire them. And so here they invest. Last year, Leilani did some math, so it looks like you spent about 1,000 hours that year on the event. And we had a bunch of other people who spent hundreds of hours. And so if we had to hire you on a free market, we would be talking about honoraria like in 6-figure, definitely 5-figure for many people. And so
but we don't do this for money, right? We do.
What I mean is that we sort of do it for free, and we have to be very careful not make it too large, because for us, there is really no incentive to make it too large. It's much better to do it more selective, invite people who are more deserving, more diligent, more, better performers. Yeah. So that for those who show up, it's a better enriching experience. And at the same time, it's still a manageable group. And so we wanted to go a little bit larger, maybe 200, but the problem is 150, you can still manage it. You can still keep them all in one room. You can still keep them in a couple of buses. But if it's a larger group, then it becomes just too large a crowd. You basically start sacrificing quality for quantity, and you don't have to do it. It's, there's no reason. Like,
I always imagine 3 or 4 of those coach buses limit, because of course, we've got to limit our student population and then allow faculty to also participate, right? So I always imagine 4 travel coach buses. So if you guys were in Calgary, you know what that's like, because we took 4 large coach buses up to Banff National Park in the Canadian Rockies. Also, I imagine like we have to find 4 very good challenge companies, which that can be very time consuming for the local host faculty. It's difficult to really make those connections for really exceptional institutions and have them commit that much time to our students.
But even when it comes to visiting the companies, like for example, I remember in Miami, we had the tour of Port of Miami.
Oh my God, yeah.
Airlines and Miami International Airport, and we had to go in small groups because
we had to do the matrix. We had to switch.
While we did find the venue for the gala dinner and for the celebrations, again, it had to be a huge hall because, you had basically 200 people there with professors and everybody. But once we started going to the events, like in Italy, for example, we couldn't organize everyone going to all 4 companies. And so we had to choose one. And I still have regrets that, I mean, I like the company that I visited, but I really wanted to visit all 4. But with so many people, I mean, not any company, not every factory has enough room to allow a crowd of 200 people to walk through the facility.
Exactly.
So it becomes a little bit more problematic. And
it's a matrix challenge, right? So for example, what we did in Miami is I had 2 buses going to the airport, 2 buses going to the port. We met somewhere in the middle to meet with American Airlines, and then we switched. And that was, I mean, switching 2 buses with 100 people in each group was you know, and I could only be in one place at one time, you know.
Not to mention that again, it changes the dynamic. Like when you have 100, 150 people, you can still put everyone, for example, in one room around tables. Like for gala, we can be sitting and eating and looking
Right.
at the stage. But once it's more, you basically then have like a movie theater type of setup. And then people cannot sit at the table and eat and talk or take notes. It becomes a whole different, like it becomes very impersonal. And I don't think, what I mean is that, let's say if we were charging like a real price, like if it was something, you know, like profit wise, I suppose we would have an incentive to, you know, bring as many people as possible, like stadiums, like what like Tony Robbins does, you know. And so for them, it's basically profit and they have an incentive to go as large as possible. For us, since it's a kind of, you know, something we do for love and we want to have students the best experience possible, we cannot really make it too large because then, you know, and since we don't have an incentive, why would you make it too large? So let's keep it small, but really, really valuable for the students. And one thing I'm very proud of, like even this semester, so when we were looking at the registrations, a huge portion of those who come, those are the students who attended, or apply at least, those are the students who attended before and before and before. So we have a huge return rate. And so this time it looks like about a third of the applicants are people who attended prior events.
Right.
So, and then obviously it becomes an issue, you know, do you allow people to come again or do you let new people come? And
Well, we let, yeah, no, I know. I saw that. I kept seeing names over and over and over, and I'm like
how can I say no to Alex Mbaka, even though he attended like 4 of those, but now we are friends, like how can I say no to him?
Yeah.
So says that we must be doing something right because people come again and again, and so it seems like it's a lot of value, and I'm afraid that if we go, you know, larger, like 250 people or more, it will be not quite the same fun. It will be a whole different dynamics.
And it totally waters down the experience, you know. What it does do is it forces the student to be more competitive and to surface among the top 10%. And that's the truth, right? Right, guys? Like everybody has to do their absolute best so that they can surface and bubble up to the top 10%. And of those people that get invited, usually if you're in the top 10%, you have a good shot. So in the future, if you want to be invited in any of these symposiums, just always do your best. And for those of you guys who don't get grouped into teams that are not doing their best, you can actually demonstrate to your faculty that you are an exceptional student, despite the fact that you didn't rate in the top 10%. And you ask your faculty to recommend you. And believe it or not, we give those students the same consideration as we do the top 10%. We absolutely give them the same consideration.
Yeah, usually if the student comes recommended by the professor, we take that into account. And the reason, again, is because students come from different universities, from different countries. Some have the advantage of being from an English-speaking country.
Oh, yeah.
Some have the advantage of being from a top university. And so obviously for someone, you know, like a kid from Ukraine somewhere, you know, it's a much harder time. You know, it's harder for them to be in top 10% than compared to someone like we had some top universities in the United Kingdom or in the United States. Obviously they have an advantage. And so we want to make sure that we don't miss anyone who deserves, at least at the stage when we send the invitations. So if the professor recommends you, we will take a close look at your application. And if the recommendation letters are strong, if, you know, if it looks like you're trying your best, so we will take that into account.
And we actually want to see a lot more international students participating in these events. You know, I mean, it's been very heavy North America, and what now we're seeing more and more. I think Miami, we started out with 31 countries, and I think Calgary, we finished with 42 countries.
Yeah, and that's by the country of location. If you start looking at the country of citizenship or country of origin, then it literally doubles because many students study in a different country.
Right, right. So you guys are all truly global citizens.
So I think, you know, I guess that's the situation. And again, sorry it took us so long to explain everything, but first we wanted to make sure that you understand that it was not some sort of a spontaneous decision. So a lot of thought went into it, and a lot of thought is still, I think even now that it's officially canceled for now, I think we'll still keep talking and monitoring the situation for some time, just because you cannot switch off just like that. And second, we wanted to make sure that it's also a lesson for you, or also a lesson for us. Again, sometimes you think that you have full control over the events, but once you're going international especially, geopolitical conflicts, global epidemics, all kinds of things potentially can be problematic. And in this particular case, you don't know which countries will say you cannot travel to other countries, which countries can say you cannot travel from other countries, which students may say, well, I'm not sure, it's not safe, maybe I better stay home, which connecting countries will be closed, which flights will be canceled. So all kinds of things happen all of a sudden that we just cannot control.
Yeah. And for those of you guys whose hearts are breaking right now, trust me, we did do our best, and we sincerely apologize for the disappointment, but know that your best interest was in our hearts, and that we are also thinking of the future and the next 2021 XCulture Global Business Week, wherever it is in the world, it's going to be spectacular. I am going to do my very best to make sure that we make up for what we lost this year and more. Yeah. Okay, that's a promise from me. So
the promise from me, we can say that those 250 people who got the conditional acceptance this time. So if you're one of the people who got an email a couple of weeks ago saying that you're accepted, just don't book your flight yet. We will send you personal new invitations for the next year.
Yes.
You know when and where it is. So you
will be
definitely
automatically accepted.
Yeah. In fact, I don't know. I mean, well, I hope it will not happen. But if it happens that all of them say, yes, I'm coming.
Oh, okay. Well, then I renege that.
Then we will be like journalists will have a backlog. So no new because we are still serving the last year's invitations. Well, I know for some people the plans will change. Some people will graduate, have jobs, have families. So I'm sure not all of them will be able to come next year again. Right. So there will be some room for new people, but we'll definitely try to make it up for those who had to cancel.
Yeah. And then we'll also try to get you guys invited to the AIB Southeast Conference. So I think that would be a good idea to pull from that pool as well, because they're ready to go, you know. So
okay, so yeah, I think we covered all of the details. Again, a huge thank you. I mean, obviously to you, Leilania. As I said, I know that you already spent hundreds of hours and uncompensated. I mean, and this time, you know, there is even like normally, even though we sort of spend all that time, then we have hundreds of emails with thank you notes later on. And this time we can't even get that because we didn't really deliver anything. So at least I can say thank you for preparation. And then obviously for the people in Singapore.
Gordon and Derek and Kevin, you guys are superstars. Yeah. And I'm really, really sorry that it's not happening this year, but maybe we can work it out for 2021.
Let's try to make it work. And since we now have more time to plan, first we can do it even better. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll even be able to get some better prices on some of the venues just because we have more time. So let's see how things go. I guess it would be prudent to take a few more weeks before we start planning anything, just to see how things develop.
Oh yeah, no. Until this coronavirus goes away, nobody wants to
go away. Yes. So, but let's not make any plans until we know that it's safe, and we have a year and a half essentially to plan the next event.
Right.
So I guess we can take that time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone, and
in love.
Yeah. XCulture. Yeah.
XCulture.
Okay. Thank you so much, Leilani. So I'll stop it.